So, having explained the ends of the clavicle, the next thing we are going to be looking at is the attachments on the clavicle. So, looking at the first diagram, the superior view of this clavicle, you are having the trapezius muscle. This trapezius muscle is painted blue, and blue simply means that it is inserting wherever it is painted. Okay, so blue illustration is showing that a muscle has inserted in that particular place. Therefore, the trapezius muscle inserts into the posterior border of the lateral one-third of the clavicle. As you can see, that is the lateral one-third of the clavicle. Then let's talk about the deltoid. The deltoid originates because it is painted red, which shows that it originates. So it originates from the anterior border of the lateral one-third of the clavicle. Now, having trashed that, let's go over to the next muscle, which is the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Now, this particular muscle that is originating here is the clavicular head of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which originates at the half of the rough superior surface of the medial to third of the clavicle. Medial to third half of the rough superior surface. It did not originate in the whole of the medial to third part of the clavicle. Then the next one we are having is the pectoralis major muscle. The pectoralis major muscle, the clavicular head, originates from the anterior surface of the medial to third of the clavicle. Haven't talked about that, let's go over to the inferior view. The inferior view presents the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and the sternocleidomastoid muscle originates from the medial part of the posterior surface of the clavicle. Then the next one we are looking at is the subclavius. The subclavius muscle presents an inferior surface that bears the subclavian groove, which is a rough impression on the inferior surface. This groove gives insertion to the subclavius muscle. So I've explained the trapezius muscle, the deltoid muscle, the sternocleidomastoid muscle, the pectoralis muscle, and the subclavius muscle. Then the next one we are going to go into is the ligaments. The first ligament is the interclavicular ligament. This ligament is actually attached to the medial end of the clavicle. Then the next one is the costoclavicular ligament. Is attached to the rough oval impression on the inferior surface of the medial end of the clavicle. Then the last one we are going to talk about is the conoid and the trapezius part of the coracoclavicular ligament. They are named together because they are coming from the same ligament. So the conoid part of the coracoclavicular ligament and the trapezius part of the coracoclavicular ligament are attached to the conoid and trapezius parts of the clavicle respectively. So the next one we are going to talk about are the joint capsule. The lateral end of the clavicle gives attachment to the acromioclavicular joint capsule. This simply means that the lateral end of the clavicle articulates with the acromion process of the scapula to form the acromioclavicular joint, while the median end gives attachment to the fibrous capsule of the sternoclavicular joint and the articular disc superiorly. which simply means that the medial end of this clavicle articulates with the sternum to form sternoclavicular, from the word sternum, and clavicular from the word clavicle. Finally, the margins of the subclavian groove gives attachments to the clavipectoral fascia. We have come to the end of this class. Thank you for listening.